Hi everybody, this is your pal Don Hahn, and today I'm speaking to you in hushed tones and parked on a remote country road because we're going to a highly secretive place that no one ever goes to. And that place is incredibly special in the history of the Walt Disney Company. It's called the Animation Research Library. They never let the public in, but we're going there to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company, and you will be mind blown when you see what's inside. Let's go. Hello.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in ages.
I know.
Here's COVID-safe knuckle bump. Thank you. The Animation Research Library.
That's where you are.
I can't believe it.
I know.
I mean, I love this place.
You have a long history with this place.
I do, but you've been here a long time too.
Yeah, 28 years and counting.
I think I've known you all that time.
You have.
Oh man, it's so good. Well, we're lucky as a company to have you here doing all this stuff.
We have over 65 million pieces of artwork.
Excuse me, I thought you said 65 million?
I did say 65 million. And that artwork encompasses artwork that was created for both the short and feature-length animated films from the 1920s until present day.
And what I wanted to do today is not only walk around and look at the amazing artwork that's here, but also talk about the people, because I think they're the star of the show as much as the artwork. So if we behave really well, can we actually go see some of this artwork?
Yes, we can.
Where do we go?
We're going to go this way. But we're going into our collections and research area. And what you see here, and Don's going to be very careful not to touch anything, is original artwork that we've pulled so that we can share some of that with you today as we kind of go through and learn about what we do, how we do it, and why we do it.
Look at what's on this table. It's like breathtaking.
This is Tori Cranner. She is our manager of collections.
Here, knuckle bump. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
So the first thing on the table is Mickey Mouse, who we wouldn't be standing here without Mickey Mouse.
Well, that is true, but we have things that are actually even older than Mickey.
Seriously?
Yep. This drawing here is from Alice the Firefighter. So
like the Alice comedies?
The Alice comedies.
Oh
so that's our oldest piece. And then we have Mickey.
I mean, it's just unbelievable to see these pieces of artwork. How old is this? This has got to be 80 years old, maybe?
Now, when you have an animation drawing, you of course have to have a set to put it on.
Right.
And before you draw the sets, you draw layouts. So now we have some layout drawings from Snow White.
I've heard of that film.
Yeah, you've heard that film?
Yes, it's there's some small men in it.
It's kind of famous.
Wow.
You know, the Queen's throne from the Snow White.
It's like an Art Deco masterpiece when you look at the peacock behind the throne, and you realize the men and women that were making these films were probably the best of their generation.
Yeah, any of these pieces could hang in a museum.
Yeah.
The artwork is just exquisite, and the level of just detail and beauty in any of these pieces is amazing.
You know what I like too is how human they all are. Sometimes I remember as a kid I used to think of Disney artists as being otherworldly. And this though, you look at the paperwork that's on it and you see like people's names and somebody's phone number and a coffee stain and that kind of stuff. And that's what kind of brings it into the world of holy business. Somebody sat down with a pencil and drew this?
There's so many things in this collection that are about the process of making the movie or about the people who make the films.
Yes.
Other than just the art, which in itself is incredible. So these are model sheets. Most of the ones we have are photostats, like you'll see over here, but we do have a few original drawings. This is a very old Mickey Mouse by
And that's
Les Clark.
original?
Yep.
And Les Clark drew that, who's one of the 9 old men, that Walt Disney famously used as kind of the core of his animation group. There's a temptation always to talk about value, and I always think that's not important in terms of dollars and cents. But culturally, Mickey Mouse was admired around the world, and Walt Disney was a huge celebrity because of this drawing. And talk about culturally relevant, here's Pinocchio.
This is Visual Development by Gustav Tenggren.
Gustav Tenggren was one of the most iconic, well-known artists of the early Disney period. A transplant from Europe who, his work looks like a storybook because that's what he did for a living. It is breathtaking. I would be willing to purchase this piece if you're willing to sell it for, perhaps $100 if you'd like.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay, good. Over here working on an actual job is...
That would be Tom Panitsky. He's one of our collections team.
I happen to have Mickey Sorcerer in front of me.
Yeah.
So what you see in front of you is a box that has X sheets in it, and this actually is an X sheet from the 1940s. So what I happen to have here is on the screen. So you see here, this is the Mickey pose right there.
Yes. Oh my God, that's the same thing that's on the screen.
That's the exact pose.
And this is the original drawing?
This is the original drawing that you're seeing on screen right now. And the X sheet, which is sitting right next to it, it's a roadmap
Yeah.
So when you look at this, it's basically telling the camera person what the animator is thinking and how the drawings are placed underneath the camera.
And why did they shoot these pencil drawings?
Well, because this way the animators can see how the character is moving, and if there's anything by way of they need to accentuate something different or something may not look right, they can pencil test the drawing first, and then they can go back and say, okay, could you maybe have him move a little faster here? Could you maybe have him do something different over here?
And I think that's something that was really unique to Walt Disney, because a lot of the other studios didn't have the money or interest in the art form to do that kind of thing. They would just say, well, let's do some animation and cross our fingers and hope that it works.
Right.
But Disney Studio is all about the acting and the performances. It's an amazing art form and it's amazing technology. For 1940, nobody was doing this.
No.
Hi.
Hi, Don.
What you doing?
I'm working on Pinocchio animation right now.
Oh, just another day at the office.
Just another day.
Wow. So these drawings we're looking at are from the late 30s, early 40s-ish.
Yeah.
And so what literally, this is a folder of animation drawings. So if,
Yes.
if we were to hold this up and flip it, which I won't do, they would progress one at a time. But what's this red stuff here?
This is the scene at the end with Monstro, and this red stuff is actually an effects level of the water effects. So
see, okay.
Monstro is kind of hangry, going after Pinocchio and
He's
Geppetto. Yes, that's how I like
Love
to
that
view
word,
him.
yeah.
And what's really interesting is, and we don't have this often, but Art Palmer, who was in charge of the water effects for this scene, this is actually an animation drawing. There's a small level of water right here as Monstro is about to burst through the water, but he actually laid out what the different effects are. So right here we have the grease pencil with the blue is for the foam, and then we have the, they're kind of like hash marks or splashes with dark red, and then the watercolor is the drippings off of Monstro. You can see the ink and paint department went through and put notes as to what color of ink and paint they were going to use for each effect.
Such an art form. And so much like hidden technology, so much of the stuff we're looking at today was never on the screen, and yet you couldn't see the movie if this wasn't done. This wasn't done as background work.
Right.
I noticed too, you're handling a dangerous tool in your hand. What exactly is that?
This is a spatula, so it's basically like a palette knife, but this way we're able to go through each drawing without bending it and with limited handling, so that way we're not creasing it or
So amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. This is like an amazing stop on the tour. Fox.
Hey, Don,
How are you? It's good to see you.
Well, I'll shake a little bit
Gloved
like that.
handshake, I
Yes.
know. I haven't seen you in ages. Are you okay?
You're doing fine. Busy as all
Good.
get
Yeah,
out.
I know. You guys are doing so much work for the 100th anniversary, and there's exhibits. and all that
Exhibition,
stuff.
Disney Plus,
Out of
everything
control,
else. so-
Everything else. Well, you're going to take us into a place that I haven't been for years, if
Oh.
ever, and it has a big 5 on the door.
Yes, it's Vault 5, also known as the Dimensional Objects Vault.
We'll follow you.
Okay.
Holy
Here
smokes,
we
it's
go.
freezing in here.
Oh, that's the climate control. We keep everything right around 60 to 65 degrees
Why?
Fahrenheit, just to preserve the art better.
And your lunch is always fresh.
Yeah, definitely.
And what do we have in all these cabinets?
Well, these are maquettes. These are the study models. And here's Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
So
How are you?
Talk to you a little bit about the study models
Holy
that we have.
smokes, there's Monstro.
These are the original maquettes from the original production
Oh.
of Pinocchio.
So these were done back in the era when they were making the movie.
Yes, and they would sit on the animator's desks so that they can see the character as they were drawing them.
And these are from Fantasia, these orchestra members.
Yes.
Why?
You know, there's a rumor that those were actually used at the beginning of the orchestra, so they didn't have to have an orchestra.
Yes.
So they would use these instead.
Oh, kind of like
As
shadow
a-
puppets.
And they were using for camera and lighting shadow tests for
Exactly.
the original. So these have been sculpted by the character model department and painted by the actual ink and paint members at the time. And if you see Stromboli's carriage, they would actually manipulate that carriage over a faux cobblestone road and film that so that they could actually take those frames of film and translate that to cell animation.
And here's Donald Duck from Fantasia.
Fantasia 2000.
These are really beautiful. I don't remember seeing these.
And they're different. These are different from the ones that you saw with Pinocchio. The ones in Pinocchio, they were made with wire and plaster. These are now made more with resin.
When you come to work in the morning sometimes, do you pinch yourself and just go, I'm hanging out with these characters and Like, what does that feel like?
I love it. I love this vault. I love everything about it. And it's just so much fun to come and see all the different varieties and the different type of sculptures. These are all from the computer. I mean, in the level of detail in her dress.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. It's amazing the stuff they can do now.
I have a dress exactly like that, and it's so beautiful when I wear it rarely around the house, but that's amazing.
I bet you look fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Somebody once said, what's the value of the artwork in this collection? And I say, what's the value of any piece of artwork in our collection sparking the imagination of an artist nowadays to create something new? And that's beyond price. And that could be from a sketch or a painting or just a drawing of a character. Any piece of our 65 million plus physical pieces of artwork could inspire somebody to create something new. These little touches that you can draw from, pun intended, previous artworks.
Yes, and thank you for those puns.
Mary Blair pieces of artwork from an
Lady
exhibition.
and the Tramp.
Yeah, from Lady and the Tramp. You didn't think that she might have worked on that, but she actually did back in her watercolor era days.
Amazing.
You're seeing two styles of Mary Blair just right next to each other.
It's just priceless on so many levels, and it's affected all of our lives, but also affected culture and affected the history of Disney and affected the success of the studio, because if it weren't for Cinderella, the studio would have gone bankrupt because it was going bankrupt back after the war, and Cinderella brings that back, and now here's the original drawings from Cinderella. Fox, where are we?
We're about to enter Vault 3, which is one of the most magical vaults. This is the first of our feature film vaults. So we have artwork from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs all the way to the 1977 release of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
So we're in the same room as Snow White.
Snow White, Cinderella, Alice from Alice in Wonderland, Aurora from Sleeping Beauty.
Wow.
So all of these. This is one of the main features of our vault, is the compact shelving. So if we wanted to go back in time, I like to say this is our time machine. I could always walk back to 1937.
No.
And here we are looking at packets of animation from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
So this is like a huge piece of cinema history standing here.
This is history right here.
And over here it says Pinocchio.
We've already moved to 1940. We're in Pinocchio.
So if I want to dip into Bambi, I can roll this back and we can walk down here and see
dip into Bambi. Or if we wanted to see the drawings from Cinderella's dress transformation,
which we always do.
We would begin right down here with this box of sequence 3, scene 41.
And that was one of Walt Disney's favorite scenes.
That's one of Walt's favorite scenes.
And it's sitting right here on the shelf.
Right on the shelf in animation drawings. Another feature here
Yes.
is what we call our Delta cabinets. And these we store the oversized background. Whenever you're replicating a camera move in animation, you have to paint the background larger so that you can move it under the camera. So where do we put these? The cabinet like this in these background sleeves. So you could always come and look.
Oh, you've got to be kidding. So that is a hand-painted background from Pinocchio.
And if you remember the Gustav Tengrid piece you saw earlier,
I know.
you will see the colors replicated in this background.
It's the same concept because you have the kind of the cool backgrounds and you have the area where the characters would have to have been here, where it's lit.
Yes.
That is unbelievable.
So if you want to transport yourself to London,
which I do,
you could just pull out the background and
From
fly
Peter
over
Pan.
London from Peter Pan.
Yeah, that's certainly, one could say,
From
a
You Could
memorable
Fly.
scene.
Yes, in my mind, it's one of the best adaptations of Peter Pan that's been committed to film.
This was not always in this condition and location. A lot of this stuff would have been in a box at the bottom of somebody's desk, and then it would have moved over to the Disney studio, and then it moved over on, the location we're at now. And so you feel like it's a miracle that some of this is still together in the form it is and in the shape it is.
I think, back in the days of the Hyperion studio, they had a room called the morgue, and it's where they kept all the material.
Which is an old newspaper term from where they kept clip files and
Exactly.
information and that kind of thing.
And so saving it from those earliest days was a stroke of foresight.
So what is this whole Disney thing about? Like, why?
Well, for me,
why are we preserving this?
I think we're preserving this so that the legacy can always be remembered and to be built upon. Because you want this to go forward and to be telling these stories for generations upon generations. The very first film I ever saw was The Jungle Book in a drive-in with my family.
Yep.
To be around all of this artwork and to know that I'm connected in some way to something that I'd always longed for as a kid and seen as a kid, is, to me, is amazing. That any day I may be asked to walk into a vault such as this, to go find something in a box that maybe hasn't been looked at in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, who knows, half a century, pull something out. And then by doing that, help somebody else kind of make something or learn something from that. And for me, that's the connection.
And how amazing that we're standing here probably 10 feet away from the Jungle Book drawings you saw when you were a kid at that drive-in theater.
Exactly.
It's a miracle. Fox, I can't thank you enough for showing us through
Well,
this. I need to
glad to
sit
have
down
you
and
come
process it for a while, but you are
Yes.
amazing to take us through this and explain
Yes.
it all.
Glad to have you visit anytime, Don.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Tamara. How was that? That was my entrance. How are you?
Hi, Don.
I haven't seen you in ages.
I know, it's been a long time.
And you work on a lot of variety here in
Yeah.
putting together displays and exhibits and all kinds of things.
I think a lot of it is how do we get this beautiful artwork that we have in our vast collection
Yes.
out into the public where they can enjoy it,
Right.
be inspired by it. Certainly there is an educational element with the museum, the exhibition program that we have, but really it's about letting people see behind the scenes, because that's not something that you would see in the final film.
So what are you doing today? What's out on the table? What's up?
There's going to be a makeup line that we are working
No,
on
come
with
on.
Disney Color. I've got a swatch book, and they want to take some of
Seriously?
our
Is that
some
what
of our
this
characters.
is?
Yes, it's an eyeshadow palette. So I have some swatches that we are using to match the cell to the colors in the palette. And they also are doing one for Jungle Book and one for Dumbo. One of the things that we have a sample that we happen to have out is a model from one of our exhibitions
Oh, is
that
that
we
what this
did a
is?
while ago. Yeah, and actually Patrick worked on this. Hey Patrick, we're gonna call you over. Do you want to talk a little bit about the model that we made for a project? This was actually a number of years ago.
Sure. So we made this for Shanghai.
Yeah, we had it in a couple locations in China, but the models are perfect because they help us see how the linear feet, the run of all of our artwork, and we get a chance to test out wall colors where it's cheap and easy.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the models, like you always see Walt Disney with a model of Pirates of the Caribbean or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yes.
And it's so
But
wonderful.
it really does in one, more than just, obviously we work a lot with blueprints and elevation and plan view,
Yeah.
but to actually see something dimensionally where we can take a camera through to see what the guest experience would look like.
Yes.
And how the angle of sort of the introductory plaques and whatnot. So when we make our changes, it's easy and cheap on paper that we can just tape
Yeah.
over and then make those.
You know, you don't think about that often, like easy and cheap is a big part of the Disney culture also. And was when we were making the movies. It was like the mantra we had, just even during movies like Beauty and the Beast, it was bigger, better, faster, cheaper. And so it was like, you do the best quality you can, but there's still parameters. But it's part of any business culture, and it's show business. And that's part of what you guys do too, because you're setting up exhibitions, it seems, around the world.
Yeah, we have one opening up in Australia in a month. The one that's traveling around Europe that's currently in Italy is the art of storytelling. And we have based it off
cool.
a lot of the books that Walt had purchased and had made into films.
Oh, when he went to Europe
Yeah,
in
all across
1935, and he
Yes.
brought back a boatload of books.
Boatload, literally. Brought it on
Really?
the boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you had an exhibit recently at the Metropolitan Museum.
Yes, and after it opened at the Met, it traveled to the Wallace in London, and it just opened up in December 2022 at the Huntington Library in Pasadena, California.
You're communicating a lot of Disney to the world.
Mhm.
What does Disney mean to you?
For me, I think this place is a place of wonderment and magic. And I think it comes across even for people that work here. And I think when I go out into the world and I see things that are going on, to be able to be part of a company whose mission is to visualize a better tomorrow for all generations. And that's one of the things. Walt did not make this company just for children. He was very clear that his mission was really to create a place where people could not just escape to, but really enjoy.
Yes.
And I think that's what it is it really does, it feels so trite, but it really does come down to that sense of magic and wonderment.
I'll let you get back to work, and I'll keep wandering around.
Sounds good. Go find my coworkers.
Okay, it's
Great
so
to
good
see
seeing
you.
you. Okay.
Take care.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hello.
My favorite
Hey,
one.
like
Hey,
this
there's
looks like
Don
the
again.
gift wrap department at Make Company or something. What are these?
These are mock-ups, and this is a hero example of one, but this was for an installation where the tangled lanterns, where it's like an immersive experience where you enter a room and all of the tangled lanterns at different heights kind of glowing and reflect around the walls.
This was in an exhibit in Japan.
Any way we can get, especially like young people, to really fall in love with animation in a place that meets them. Like,
I see.
You know, they experience animation, especially like classic, really old animation to them.
Yeah.
But, you know, they can experience it in a new way and fall in love with not only the animation, but maybe the process of animation, of like how it's made, and like using projections on, like we've projected onto like an old animation table to kind of bring, you know, the drawings to life in real time, and just ways to sort of demonstrate.
Wow. Thanks, guys. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'll give you an
elbow bump. Thank you. I don't want to touch your
middle of
anything.
working. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. What are you doing here?
Yeah. So this is where we actually digitize the art.
How do you scan these so that the artist can pull up a file and get their nose into it and really feel like they can take a close look at it?
Yeah. So we're shooting everything at a super high resolution. We're shooting everything at 600 pixels per inch. By photographing it digitally at a very high resolution, we have the ability to go into something like Photoshop, zoom into 100%, and then you can actually see a lot of the stuff that is probably not visible to the naked eye. You can see that we put a ruler in every one of these, so the artist has the ability to figure out how big or small something is. Because, right, you could look at this and think that it's 2 inches. You could also think that it's 25 inches. And so according to this ruler, we're like, that's a 5-inch ruler. So this is probably like a 12-field piece of paper, so like 12 by 10. But from there, you can just click into it. And then now,
oh my gosh,
you have the ability to just look around. And so you can see like there's a lot of ink in this. Looks
That's
like maybe
so
some marker.
Because this is a 60-year-old piece of art, so you couldn't really go to the shelf and pull it off, unless you were like restoring it or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I'm sitting at my desk and painting backgrounds and I want to know if this is gouache or felt marker or something, I can do what you just did and say, well, it's felt marker, because you can clearly see that the marks that Ken Anderson made when he did this were from a felt marker. What about animation? You like, it's beautiful at the resolution you have here, but what do you do when you have a stack of drawings? Do you look at them just one at a time and kind of imagine what it would look like, or can you actually move them? Or
yeah, well, so it's interesting because whenever I start with a stack of animation, sometimes I have no clue what I'm photographing. So this is from Fantasia. The artwork itself isn't necessarily like timed, and it's not composited either. These are basically just each individual photograph of a piece of art, and then we just basically put it on a player, and it's running at 12 frames per second.
Wow, that is breathtaking to see it though, because that's what the animators would have seen. That's what Walt Disney would have looked at, exactly this, which is a pencil test on, at the time, a piece of film, but it was a way to judge the animation before it went to color.
Yeah, and I think so right now you're looking at about 380 drawings.
Wow.
For this particular scene. And then if like an artist, again, wanted more information about it, they can stop this and then they can actually click frame by frame, give them a better idea of sort of kind of like how much actually needs to be drawn frame to frame. And so they can see how much movement we need to make it in order to actually get it sort of kind of.
You know, that's no wonder that people call this place the secret weapon at Disney, because you can study this stuff. It is a art school every day of the week here.
Right. And so this is Cinderella. So this is the dress transformation that you guys probably talked about earlier.
Fox just showed us the boxes of animation where that's stored. That, you know, Walt Disney's favorite scene, and there it is. Oh man!
And once again, the effects would have been drawn on one piece of paper.
Yeah.
Cinderella would have been drawn on a separate piece of paper.
You know, I've worked in it all my life, and it's still mind-boggling. I look at this stuff and I go, how can like people do this?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, like I said, I had a fine art degree, but I wouldn't consider myself like anyone that could draw exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And so like even photographing something like Lady and the Tramp, where it's just animals. But then you think about it, and for the most part, it's artists drawing dogs that move and talk, but they were also figuring it out at the same time.
We were dumb enough to not know that we couldn't do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so you just forge in going, we'll figure out a way to do that. And that's where you get Cinderella and her gown, or the ballroom scene of Beauty and the Beast, or something that is fresh and interesting and amazing visually. That's what's cool about this place as a studio and a group of artists, and a aesthetic that always has been part of the studio.
But I do remember first coming in and holding Snow White in my hands and just going, oh, this is like a big deal. This is like the beginning of a company that people around the world know. But I still get those moments where like something will come in and you'll just sit there and look at it for 10 minutes before you photograph it, because it's either the artistic style is so interesting or just the way in which they decided to pick a scene. And a lot of times, sometimes it's even like the realism or even like the fantasy side of it. Where you just take a few minutes and just appreciate what you're actually getting to photograph.
I get it. We're lucky people, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Matt, you've been amazing. Thank you for sharing what you
Yes.
do. I'll come back unannounced many times.
Okay. Yeah. Love to have you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Mary, I'm like stunned.
In a good way,
In a good way. No, I mean, I live most of my life stunned, but we've walked around here and seen not only some great artwork, but heard from some brilliant people who keep it all alive and do all this work for, not only for the company, but for the kind of mythology of Disney and the storytelling, all that stuff. What's it like for you working with these people every day?
It's amazing, right? Because Walt said it takes the people to make all this happen.
Yeah,
and that's exactly it. And for me, I kind of equate this to the creation of an animated film. It's collaboration of all kinds of artists across disciplines with one vision in mind to get to that goal. That's what we do here. We are the caretakers of that art afterwards, but we want to ensure everything is in a safe place and it's in better shape than it was than when we found it, so the next generation of archivists will inherit that and carry that legacy on. But also doing it for the artists who are here today, because without this place, the level of inspiration that they have wouldn't exist. And I could argue, would Frozen have been as fabulous as it was if they didn't have the Cinderella dress transformation scene to go back to and look at that artwork?
Yeah, exactly.
And they came and they visited and they looked and they saw.
Thank you so much for
it's
your
my
time
pleasure.
and letting me wander the halls, and I'll sneak back in whenever I can.
Yes, please. Okay.
Take care of yourself.
Bye, Dawn. You too. Oh, it's good to have you.
Thanks. It's good to see you. I'll be just out taking a nap in my car.
Okay. Drive carefully.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.